So then we go to the part of, what do you do? I mean, all this may seem, I mean, I do this all the time, so it seems fairly straightforward, but when you only do this once in your life, your parents only do it once in your life, it can be overwhelming, but it's not overwhelming, and it needs to happen because you just kind of think, again, go back to that question, if I were to die right this second, if God were to rapture me up, or I would get hit by a truck or whatever, right this second, what happens? I mean, what condition have I left people in? And they don't know where anything is, and even nowadays, it's not just the old school of all your documents, but passwords, and even people today designate what they call a cleaner to come in to grab your computer and all the stuff that you don't want your spouse to see. Strangely enough, you know, everybody has stuff in their closets that they don't want out there, so they designate a cleaner to come grab that stuff with their passwords and eliminate it. But you get all your stuff together and you put them in, you know, kind of put it in one binder and just have it for somebody, so when if they were to die, you know it, because everybody doesn't get cancer and then die a year later, and you have this, you know, lots of people, and I had one the other day that I run with that just dropped dead of a heart attack, just running, dropped dead, nothing, 54 years old. So it's important to have all your information together so your spouse knows where it is, or if it's your parents, your kids know where it is, or whatever, and to organize them in terms of life insurance and things like that. And life insurance is kind of an interesting question, and if you're young and you have young kids, you need to look at that situation. It's not really estate planning, but it kind of is, in the sense that would your wife and your children be taken care of if your job were to go away because you're dead? And it's important to have, if the answer to that was no, it's important to have life insurance to replace your job. And to do that, you really want term life insurance, not whole life insurance, because you can buy a lot of term for not very much money, and you know, you can buy like a 20 or 30-year term policy that take care of the fact that until your children are adults and things like that, or the time period it takes you to build up your estate where you don't need life insurance. But life insurance should really only be bought to cover premature death. It shouldn't be an investment policy, anything like that. Those should be dealt with other, so you can get enough insurance to cover you if you were to die early. And if it's a bunch of insurance, you want to put in an irrevocable life insurance touch, which is beyond this, but you can contact me later if you need that. And then if you have all that in place, then go meet with your lawyer and kind of go through this and deal with, okay, these are the people I want to take care of. These are the people I want to take care of my situation, be my executors, my trustees, my guardians, and these are my beneficiaries. And if something were to happen to my beneficiaries, these are my next beneficiaries, and line all that up. So that your lawyer can have all those answers and can prepare these 4 documents. And then once you get these documents in place, you need to notify these people that you're putting in charge so they know where your documents are and what your wishes are so they can take care of them. One of the big issues is how to deal with your parents, because our parents are all in a generation that's a little different than ours. They're not as open. They come from a generation that's a little more closed-minded. They're private about it. They don't want to deal with it. But it's important to deal with it. And so I always suggest to take your parents out for a nice dinner and get them a couple of glasses of wine and just kind of enjoy the evening, and then let them know ahead of time that you just kind of want to discuss, you know, issues like this so they're not blindsided. But enjoy the evening first and then sit down with them and explain everything that I've kind of talked to you about. They may have stuff in place, they may not have stuff in place, but if they have stuff in place, they're probably not even telling you about it. They haven't disclosed to you how much money they have, where it is, or anything else. And when you have parents that die and they got nothing, I mean, they've got nothing in place in terms of estate planning documents, or they have them all and you don't know where they are, and then you got to go through all their stuff and figure out, okay, who do they write checks to, who is their accountant, who is their lawyer, and try and run it down. And it's just, there's no reason for that. So if they don't have anything in place, you want to take them and meet with an attorney to get these documents in place, because with life comes death, and it's just better to deal with it than it is to just sweep it under the rug and have this huge mound under your rug that nobody's talking about. And then if you die, when your parents die, you know where the location of these documents are, you know that they're all completed, and you know how to start. And then the other thing is it's important to have at least one of their bank accounts on that account as a joint owner or paid on death or designated beneficiary. The person that they're going to have be their executor, or somebody else that they trust, so that the bills that happen right after death can be paid from their money. Because a lot of times, if it's a child or something, they don't have the money to just go pay for the funeral and things like that. So it's a good idea to at least have one bank account set up to where the money is available immediately so that they can get at it.
Everything that you talked about, can you kind of go over a little bit about the cost of estate planning as well?
Sure. Typically, if it's the normal family that you see with a husband and a wife and children, I would typically do I've put these documents in place for them, the 4 documents, the will, the general power of attorney, the medical power of attorney, and the physician's directive, in place for a flat fee of somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. And that includes meeting with them originally, getting all the information filled out, the questionnaire, doing the documents, and meeting with them to get these properly executed and in place. When I say $1,000 and $2,000, it's for young kids, and I have, because I have kids that are like out of college now and just getting married. I do all their friends and everybody, all the young marrieds with kids, I do all those for $1,000 flat fee, just to make sure they get them in place. They're generally, other than that, the typical person would be about $1,500.
Another question we have is, what are your thoughts about do-yourself documents?
I think they're fine. I think they can be useful. I always suggest that they at least have somebody look at them, because the do-it-yourself documents are usually very basic, and they don't capture all the what-ifs. And if you don't do this all the time, you don't necessarily know what you're missing. I mean, the information that you have in there will be accurate, and it's most likely to be fine. But if you don't know what to ask, then those usually don't have them in them. For example, going back just one example of like the anti-lapse statute, typically if you went on and did a do-it-yourself will, and what happens is they do these documents, they put them in a drawer, and nobody thinks about them for 20 years, and so you don't think about it. But if somebody were to predecease you or something like that, it's going to default to the state, because you're not going to have an anti-lapse provision in your will if you do these do-it-yourself deals. But I'm not, for 90% of the people, that's probably fine. But it's a little bit like trying to fix your car if you're not a mechanic, or trying to self-diagnose yourself if you're not a doctor. You can look at something and you don't really, a doctor might answer something in 5 minutes, and you think, well, I could have done that. This mole doesn't look like cancer. But what you're missing is like all the experience the lawyer has that's going through their minds, that's discarding them because they know it's not applicable. I can go to the dermatologist and I can look at all those little pictures of what's melanoma, but I can tell you this: nothing that I've ever had taken off by a dermatologist ever looks like those pictures. It's always the ones they take off that look fine. So, you kind of do so at your own risk.
Hi, Richard. I have a question. Are there certain life events that you should be continuously updating your will if you do it at a younger age?
Yes.
It's a living document, I'm assuming?
Typically, you want to look at your stuff. Anytime you have a significant financial change, if you inherit a lot of money, if when you have children, if you haven't addressed your children. Now, every time you have children, typically a will address after-born children if you have one or something. But if you have no children or something, when you have your first child, you need to address it. And then about, if the tax laws change, anything like that changes, you want to look at it. And then you ought to look at it you ought to put a tickler in your system to look at it every 5 or 10 years because, for example, how old are you right now?
26.
Okay. What happens is the kids that you hung around with when you were like in college, for example, that you were going to be your lifetime friends, that were going to be your bridesmaids and all that kind of stuff. When you're 35, you might have moved to a new city with a new job, and they might not be your friends anymore. So you've had them, named to be your guardians and things like that. That's why when you have children, you want to refocus on it because you figure out your guardians and your trustees. But people come in and out of your life every 5 or 10 years, so you want to kind of have a tickler system to just look at it every once in a while. Now, do people do that? Probably they wait every 10 or 20 years, but it's really good if you just look at it every 5 years. It may take you 30 minutes to just go through it and say, yeah, we like all these people, there are no problems, no change at all. But many times, you're thinking, I don't even know them anymore. They don't even live here, and I don't want my children, being the guardian of somebody, having their guardian in Alaska, when they live near you to start with. So I would say every 5 years you ought to at least pull it out and look at it.
Perfect. Thank you.